I would further like to welcome the members of the governing body, Flow Lucknow Chapter Chairperson Mrs. Pooja Garg, the Executive Committee, and all Flow members across the country. I am Dr. Amrita Prakash Khatri. I am an ophthalmologist practicing at Sahara Hospital, Lucknow. I am also a member and head of the Health Committee of Flow Lucknow Chapter. I would like to begin by saying a few words about our chapter. In spite of being a fairly new member of the Flow family, Lucknow chapter has shown a remarkable growth since its inception. We believe in working meticulously as a team to bring out a positive change in the society as well as help each other grow and flourish. Our topic for today is taming the twin dragons of thyroid and diabetes, and we have with us Padma Bhushan and BC Roy awardee Dr. Amrish Mittal. He has been presented with the Laureate Award from the Endocrine Society of US for his international excellence. Dr. Mittal is the chairman and head of the Endocrinology and Diabetes Department at Max Healthcare, a group of 16 multi-speciality hospitals. He is the domain expert of the governing board of National Health Authority of India 2019 and the president of AIIMS Gorakhpur. He was the chairman and the endocrinology and diabetes division at Medanta, the Medicity, for a decade from 2009 to 2019. Dr. Mittal is a former editor-in-chief of the Indian Journal of Endocrinology and Metabolism and a past president of the Endocrinology Society of India. He is a board member of the International Osteoporosis Foundation, and he is also the founder and the chief advisor for the Indian Society for Bone and Mineral Research. Welcome, Doctor. I would now request Mrs. Pooja Garg to do the welcome address.
Thank you, Amrita. A very good evening to our esteemed guest speaker, Padma Bhushan awardee, Dr. Amrish Mittal, past presidents, GB members, and my fellow Flow family. We at Flow Lucknow believe that first area to be addressed in the journey towards truly empowering women is health. Throughout this year, we will be looking at various aspects of improving health of women and will in particular discuss and look at holistic and natural remedies for lifestyle diseases that plague the modern women. Women are known to be multifaceted and play vital roles in our society. There is always a fight against time for working women. Maintaining a healthy work-life balance results in very less time or no time to think about herself and her well-being. As per ASSOCHAM, 68% of working women in the age bracket of 21 to 52 years were found to be afflicted by lifestyle ailments such as obesity, depression, chronic backache, thyroids, diabetes, and hypertension. Lifestyle diseases are those whose occurrence is primarily based on daily habits of people. The onset of these lifestyle diseases is insidious. They take years to develop, and once encountered, they do not lend themselves easily to cure. Given this background, Flow Lucknow brings to you a series of talks by eminent doctors about various lifestyle disorders, and who better to start than our very own guest for the day, Dr. Amrish Mittal, an endocrinologist par excellence, who will speak to us about the two major lifestyle disorders which have taken deep root among urban women, namely thyroids and diabetes. Before we begin, we would like to present Dr. Mittal with a green certificate as a token of appreciation. Can I please request the IT team to display the green certificate on screen?
We at FICCI Flow plant a tree in your name in association with Trees for Tribals. You can track your tree on growtrees.com with the unique identification number given on the green certificate. This is our way to contribute towards a cleaner and greener tomorrow.
Thank you. A very warm welcome once again, Doctor. And I would now request Amrita to please take this forward.
Thank you again, Doctor, for sparing us with your precious time today. And without really delaying any further, we'd like to jump into the topic. So, sir, when I talk about diabetes and thyroid, So they are definitely two of the most commonly prevalent disorders in the population. And also, if I would take the liberty to say that they are also the most talked about diseases. From households to dinner table conversations to social gatherings, everybody is talking about diabetes and thyroid, and everybody has something to add on and something to say. But then, because of these conversations, there are also a lot of misconceptions and myths that are also prevalent. So our request to you would be to give us a little more info on what these diseases actually are, what is the pathogenesis of these diseases, how they happen, and what they basically do in the body.
So thank you very much, firstly, for inviting me here. It's a pleasure to join this group. And Lucknow is my home, and I belong to Lucknow. It's always a pleasure to be back amongst friends. I'm so glad you gave me this chance to talk to people from my hometown. And I think this will have a wider audience. I guess these days you have a wider audience now because of everything being online. So we may have people from different parts also. Anyway, so let's start with thyroid, I guess, first, because there are more questions about thyroid. Diabetes is still discussed a lot, but thyroid somehow gets it gets stepmotherly treatment in terms of actual discussion and science. So I think it's what I say first might surprise you. Okay, so thyroid, we know that thyroid is a gland in front of the neck, right? And it's a butterfly shaped gland here, right here, right? And it can either overfunction or underfunction, or it can have nodules or tumors. We're not talking about those. So the commonest disorder of thyroid is underfunction of thyroid, which is called hypothyroidism, which means that the gland is not making enough hormone, enough thyroid hormone. Why should we worry about thyroid hormone? Thyroid hormone is important for our cellular metabolism, for everything, for our muscles, for our skin, for our bones, for our hair, even for our heart and brain. So for example, if someone has low levels of thyroid hormone, then you generally become dull. It's like driving your car in a very low gear. You know, everything is low. So you feel low, you feel mentally dull, you tend to put on a little bit of weight, as you crudely say, metabolism mera kharab ho gaya. You know, that kind of thing. So thyroid is a gland that controls metabolism. So your skin becomes dry, your hair tend to drop off, there might be puffiness around the eyes, you might get menstrual irregularities, a lot of things can happen. In children, you may get growth problems, you know. So there are a lot of issues that can happen with thyroid, and we typically these days don't see the florid hypothyroidism so much because it's detected much earlier. Many years ago, when we were students, we used to see really bloated people with hypothyroidism. That doesn't happen so commonly now because the test is so easy and easily available. Anyway, so and the hyperthyroidism is the reverse. Hyperthyroidism means that we are actually, oops, sorry. Hyperthyroidism means that we actually have a thyroid gland that is over functioning. And when it's over functioning, it means that we are hyper, as you say. So we actually tend to lose weight. Our skin is moist. Our hair are also moist. We sweat a lot. There's palpitation, and our appetite increases, yet we lose weight. That is hyperthyroidism. So you could have hypo or hyper. Now, the most common cause for both these conditions is the same. That is autoimmunity, which means there are antibodies that develop in our body, which recognize the thyroid as a foreign body. They think it's a foreign invader. You know, so normally antibodies, like you hear in COVID and all that stuff all the time, are meant to fight infection, fight some external problem. Here what happens is that antibodies actually uh, start fighting our own body. So here they start fighting against the thyroid. That is the concept of autoimmunity. Everyone says autoimmune disease बहुत common hai. Autoimmune disease. So autoimmunity against what? Is it against thyroid? If it's against joints, it causes rheumatoid arthritis. If it's against, there are so many things like that. Skin, then it may cause so many other skin conditions. So this is thyroid is caused by autoimmunity. Now comes the key point, which will surprise some of you, that it is not truly speaking a lifestyle condition. Unlike diabetes, which is predominantly a lifestyle condition, thyroid is actually more of a autoimmune condition, and we don't really know what role lifestyle has to play in thyroid. So the first thing is, don't blame yourself for your thyroid. You didn't do anything wrong, or don't blame your daughter or your mother ki you did this and you did that, you don't sleep at night and you don't do this, and that's why you got a thyroid. No, if thyroid has to happen, it'll happen. It'll happen because it's of autoimmunity. It is inherited genetically. It's quite common to run in families. It runs in families. And by following a healthy lifestyle, you will of course help yourself by improving your health, but you won't change your thyroid numbers. A lot of people say, we did this and I reversed my thyroid with this, and I reversed my thyroid with yoga. I reversed my thyroid with this. That is not correct. Yoga is very helpful in every way, but yoga will not reverse thyroid. And if it seems that someone had thyroid and it reversed, it is a spontaneous reversal. It is not dependent on what we did. Right? So I think that is a very important part to understand. And in this, if you see 10 cases of thyroid, 9 will be hypothyroidism. And maybe 1 or 2 will be hyperthyroidism. So we'll stick to hypothyroidism today because that's far commoner. You keep hearing discussions, as you said, about TSH itna hai, so it's a little bit extra, and all my problems in life are because of my TSH. So everything is related, including mood changes, including menstrual problems, including weight gain especially. Weight gain and mood change, people ascribe to thyroid all the time. And while it is possible that these things may happen because of thyroid, very often I find that the thyroid numbers don't explain the abnormality. So you got to be careful. So one more line before I give it back to you, and that is the concept of what is called subclinical hypothyroidism, which means that if you have a TSH value, a blood test, TSH and T4, if you have a TSH value between 5 and 10 and a normal T4 value, then you are what is called subclinical hypothyroidism, which means that it is not always necessary to treat. So people go all over about subclinical hypothyroidism, on and on. Now I've got thyroid. No, subclinical hypothyroidism can be a variation. It can be transient. It may not require treatment. So unless there is a specific condition like pregnancy or infertility, where even these minor abnormalities become important, for say if I got a TSH of 8, I wouldn't do anything. I would say, dekhenge. We'll check again in 3 months. So, or maybe do an antibody test or whatever. But every value of 5 and 10 is not a death sentence. It's not a life sentence. TSH values of between 5 and 10 are common, quite common in the population, and often don't require any treatment. Yeah, please go ahead.
That was a great insight on thyroid, and I'm sure a lot of us have heard this for the first time and they will be more informed. Coming to diabetes, so again, as you said, of course, diabetes is something, it is the most common disorder that we see, and most people know a lot about it because most people are diabetics. But again, with diabetes also, there are a lot of misconceptions that people have, especially in terms of causes of diabetes. What causes diabetes? A lot of times people tell us, मीठा ज़्यादा खाने से हो जाता है diabetes. So if you could please shed some light on the causes of diabetes and what is the process, the disease process that goes inside the body.
So I think this is an important question because firstly, we'll take away one kind of diabetes. There are 2 types, there are 3-4 types, there are 2 broad types, type 1 and type 2. Okay, so type 1 is that which classically occurs in children, although we know it can occur in adults also. And where you require insulin for treatment. Without insulin, you can't be treated. So insulin is mandatory there, right? So that is type 1. So that's a different basket altogether. Let's come to the usual diabetes that you're talking about. That is type 2 diabetes, which happens typically in the 30s or 40s, sometimes 50s, and comes on insidiously without any warning, very slowly, and maybe no symptoms at all. almost 50% or more of people with diabetes have no symptoms. So they are picked up only when they do a blood test. Otherwise, you wouldn't find out. So if there were no screening programs or no tests, you would not pick up many of those people who have diabetes. That is type 2 diabetes. Now, type 2 diabetes is determined by several things, but if I put two major things, one is our genes. It is inherited, and definitely those who have it in the family are more likely to get it. Although given the Indian propensity to develop type 2 diabetes, I think everyone has some family history or the other of type 2 diabetes these days. That is one part. The second part is the fact that it is largely determined by our lifestyle also, which means that if there is any uh, gain in weight, for example, gain in weight, it really pushes us towards diabetes. Gain in So obesity is the mother of non-communicable disorders, typical NCDs as we call them. So if one is putting on weight and one puts on weight, again, some of it is genetic, some of it is we can't help, but lot of it is actually again bad lifestyle. What does lifestyle mean? What does lifestyle mean? It's like a very sort of commonly used term. It basically means three or four things. It means that we are eating too much by and large. And if we are not eating too much, we are eating the right amounts, then we're eating the wrong things, which means we are eating too much of refined carbohydrate, refined maida or chini or polished rice or, atta, which is all white, very finely ground. So white bread. So those are refined carbohydrate is number one enemy for us. If we add a lot of fiber to that, it becomes much better. If you have whole wheat or properly, genuinely whole wheat or alternative cereals, or add things to that, or brown rice, it is much better than having clean, polished stuff, white stuff. So one is refined carbohydrate. Second is that we also take a lot of trans fats. We reheat the oil and keep cooking in that. That's very common. And therefore, although it may not impact diabetes directly, it impacts the complications of diabetes and especially heart disease in a serious way. The third is that our diets are low in protein in general. We do have lower protein diets, and that's a challenge because proteins are very important, and sometimes, especially in vegetarian diets, it's hard to get the right kind of protein unless you talk to a nutritionist once. So I think these are basics that are required in our diet. Really need to have high fat. And if you were to make a plate, actually half of it should be vegetables and other things. 1/4 should be protein and only 1/4 should be carbs. So half should be, and fat will always be there. So good fat is all right. Nuts are all right. Fats will be there as a major source of energy. But instead of half the plate being carbohydrates, a lot of it has to be vegetables. And if you're not a diabetic, if you're just healthy and want to remain healthy, then it has to be vegetables and fruits. If you're a diabetic, fruits can be used, but with caution. So when we are not careful about diet, and on the other hand, we are not also exercising, so sedentary lifestyle, which is typical of urban lifestyles, then we tend to get diabetes. To add to that, if we don't sleep enough, and if our stress levels are high, as happens in all metros and even in medium-sized towns like Lucknow, you will have the same problem. People are very stressed. They're constantly working, wanting to go ahead in life. Sometimes in Delhi, someone commutes from Gurgaon to Noida, so life is over anyway. If you're doing that every day. So all these things will precipitate your chances of getting diabetes.
Sir, of course, like you also mentioned earlier, since you started with thyroid, and most of our viewers today are interested in knowing more about the disease. So,
I told you that. I knew that is going to happen. Yeah.
Sir, again, one thing, so you did tell us that it is an autoimmune disease and there is not really anything else to be blamed. But do the stress levels in today's times, the kind of lifestyle, have some sort of an effect on the disease process, whether it can fasten the disease process in the body?
So, stress and thyroid has been a much studied area. And there are lots of papers on this, but unfortunately, they are inconclusive. If one shows there is some impact, the other shows there is no impact. So, it's really not an answer that can be given clearly because we don't really know, but we do know that stress is not the main driver of thyroid. That is there. But stress may play a role in some patients by unmasking it or aggravating it, but it's not the main driver.
Sir, as we again talked how the thyroid gland secretes the hormones that are basically responsible for the cell metabolism. What are the bodily functions that can get affected, or I would say the comorbidities of hypothyroidism or even hyperthyroidism, because we do have people who would like to know a little more about it also.
So what organs can get affected by thyroid? So when we talk of hypothyroidism, first the externals, you can get skin and hair changes, most common. Then you get some degree of fat accumulation. It's not a huge weight gain as we like to think. Hypothyroidism only causes 2, 3, at the most 4 kg weight gain, not like 20 kg. Okay, so it can cause that. It can have an impact on our muscle strength very significantly. Tiredness and fatigue and muscles not cooperating, not listening to your orders, to your brain, is an important part of hypothyroidism. You can then have different aspects. You can have a puffy face. You know, you can have even cardiac effects. Cardiac effect meaning that if you have hypothyroidism, you tend to get a low heart rate, what we call bradycardia, a low heart rate, and sometimes even water around the heart, in severe cases. Let's not go there, but you can have, but low heart rate is common. And in hyperthyroidism, you get high heart rate, right? So anyway, we're sticking to hypo right now. So heart can be affected. Brain fog, dullness, difficulty in concentrating, just a general slowness as compared to what it was. Uh, Intestine, constipation. Constipation is an important feature of hypothyroidism. So these are the typical organs that are affected by thyroid. In hyperthyroidism, you get the reverse. You get a hyperactive brain, always, restless and anxious and all that. In hypo, you get depression. In hyper, you get anxiety. Right? So in hyperthyroidism, then as I said, your eyes, instead of being puffy, they pop out. They tend to pop out sometimes. And then your face looks drawn, drawn as if all the fat has gone away. Skin looks tight over all the hands, etc. It's like someone has taken out the fat. Okay, so that's how hyper. And then you get trembling. So the muscles become weak, and so you get trembling of the hand. That's important. So nerve and muscle involvement is quite important. As far as heart is concerned, in older people especially, sometimes they present only with heart problems. बोलते हैं ना atrial fibrillation है, arrhythmia हो गया उनको, heartbeat की. So before they put in a pacemaker or treat that, they have to first rule out a thyroid. But thyroid is an important cause of rhythm disturbance. So all these are features of hypo and hyperthyroidism.
Sir, are there any early signs that you could tell us about which can basically act as red flags for general population? So for them, it is easier to have a doubt in their head and at least reach out to a clinician in the right time.
So for hyperthyroidism, there are definitely early signs. If you start losing unexpectedly, you start losing weight. If you start getting thudding of heart unexpectedly, these are very important signs of hyperthyroidism. Most important sign in hyperthyroidism is development of anxiety, trembling, thudding of heart, or unexplained weight loss. One of the tests that your doctor will do if you go to the doctor with unexplained weight loss is the test for thyroid. That he is looking for hyperthyroidism. Hypothyroidism is very difficult because hypothyroidism symptoms are very vague. There are a little bit of tiredness, a little bit of fatigue, some skin dryness. Everyone complains of those things. You ask people, even in this panel, you have difficulty in concentrating sometimes. They get, yes, everyone will. I have difficulty in concentrating sometimes. So those things happen. So they are very non-specific symptoms. So therefore, hypothyroidism for women, they should get tested at the slightest of these symptoms. And anyone over 40, typically, when they go for a health check, must ensure that they get a TSH also done. I think that's so. Hypothyroidism diagnosis is primarily made by test. Test diagnosis of both is made by test. But in hypo, you cannot often make out by clinical symptoms in the early stage. Advanced cases, as I said initially, we don't see so much these days because they are picked up much earlier. There's another variety I'm not talking about today, but it's an important point to mention for young mothers here or young couples. Uh, if there is a child to be born in the family, you have to insist to your obstetrician that they must do a test for thyroid at birth. It is mandatory, more or less mandatory, to do a testing for thyroid at birth. Please ask your doctor to do it if they're not doing it. So it's done on second day or whatever. There are many strategies, but it has to be done. Okay? Regardless of whether you have thyroid or not, you still have to do it. Number one. Number two, all pregnant women, all women who are pregnant must get screened for thyroid. It is mandatory. Why are these two situations mandatory? Because both in the newborn and in utero, when the baby is inside your womb, thyroid hormone is required for brain development of the fetus or the newborn. So if you're lacking in thyroid hormone, then it might, in very subtle ways, impact the brain potential, the mental potential of your offspring. So it is very important that every woman who's pregnant, even at the first visit to her obstetrician, should ask for a thyroid test. And every newborn should be screened for thyroid. These are like they have to be followed, right? So similarly, since we are talking, one line I'll throw in here: when you're talking of pregnancy, you must also make sure your blood glucose is checked.
Yes.
It's very important to do screening for. India has the highest prevalence of gestational diabetes in the world. So you need to make sure your blood glucose is checked at the first visit and then repeated around 22, 24 weeks again, where you do a proper glucose tolerance test. So everyone at 22, 24 weeks should have a glucose tolerance test. It's very, very important. I just threw that in because you're talking of pregnancy. Yeah.
So as we just heard from you that hypothyroidism के जो symptoms होते हैं या early signs होते हैं, they're very difficult to really diagnose. So, and since a lot of people are very motivated to actually go in for regular screenings, at least annual screenings. So do you suggest that an annual screening of a thyroid profile is good enough, or should it be done more often?
So if you are checking, if you have no symptoms or vague symptoms, once a year is fine. If you develop symptoms in between, you may want to go earlier. Now, in this, what happens is that if your TSH falls in the zone I was talking about earlier, 5 to 10, then it's always a difficult decision. The patient thinks they found a diagnosis. And this is it, and this is the problem. But whereas most of the time, that is not the primary diagnosis. So in such cases, testing for thyroid antibody becomes important. So if you're between 5 and 10, make sure your doctor tests for thyroid antibody. Because if the antibody is positive, you may require more frequent screening, even if you're not, more frequent testing, even if you're not taking treatment. Because people who have positive antibodies are more likely to develop full-blown disease. So we have to keep them under surveillance.
So taking forward from the fact that you talked about pregnancy and you talked about the menstrual abnormalities. So of course, it does suggest that thyroid tends to have a more different effect on a woman's body as compared to a man's body. And it does affect the female hormone profile. So please could you just let us some information about that?
So yes, we didn't talk about it. We talked of other organs. So I think it's important that the reproductive system is understood. Reproductive system has thyroid has an impact on the reproductive system. There's no question about it. It can even cause in young girls a situation like PCOS sometimes, polycystic ovaries, or girls with polycystic ovaries may have minor thyroid abnormalities. So there is a link there also. So thyroid hormone is important for our overall menstruation, the whole hormonal cycle. It can affect that. You can get absence of periods, you can get excessive bleeding, you can get irregular periods, all kinds of things. And whenever someone is being tested for or investigated for difficulty in conceiving, thyroid is one of the first tests that is done, right? And if you're the women who believe in preconception optimization, like, then a thyroid also is a part of that. Very, very important to have a normal thyroid function at the time you conceive. And there it is very strict. There, this 5 to 10 business doesn't work. There you have to treat everything which is in that zone. Even if it's 4.55, you will start treating. Okay, so especially if antibodies are positive. So the two conditions where thyroid becomes really, really important to treat is, one is infertility, another is pregnancy, where even subtle abnormalities you would not ignore and you would probably want to treat.
Sir, also, I would also like to ask about thyroid and its effects during menopause, because mostly a lot of older age females have been diagnosed with thyroid mostly. So what does it have to do with menopause?
So yes, of course, it can actually sometimes lead to premature menopause because thyroid is an autoimmune condition, and premature menopause can also be an autoimmune condition. So there can be a link there. It is not directly causing, but there is an association there. As such, the important point to remember about thyroid, and I'll make that point here, is that if you are taking medicine for thyroid, which is actually only a replacement. It's not a medicine. It's a replacement of something your body is not able to make. So don't worry about side effects. Okay, you're just replacing something your body is not able to make. So it's a replacement therapy, right? Now, if that happens, then you actually, if you're replacing thyroid hormone in someone who is deficient, and you're doing it properly and the TSH levels are normal, then there is no symptom that happens because of thyroid. So if you are around menopause or you're perimenopausal or you've achieved menopause and you have a thyroid, but it's well controlled, then there's nothing. So well controlled hypothyroidism produces nothing at all. And the drug has virtually no side effects. So thyroid is not a big disease. Thyroid is actually a simple disease. The key is in the diagnosis. Once diagnosed, treatment is not difficult if you need someone who has a knowledge, but otherwise, if you have the right doctor, it's very easy to adjust the dose. And most of my thyroid patients who are stable, I actually call them back once a year. And nowadays with video conferencing, I just say you contact me on video once a year. So a controlled thyroid patient is like a normal person. Then you cannot attribute your depression, your this, your weight gain, anything to thyroid. That is, people say that, I can't lose weight because I have thyroid, a common question, right? Which is not correct. You can lose weight if you have thyroid. It is as good or as bad as for anybody else, unless your thyroid is not treated. If it's not treated, you can't lose weight. That's correct. But your treated thyroid can lose weight, and it's hard to lose weight for everybody. So it's equally hard for thyroid. It's not harder for thyroids to lose weight.
Sir, also again talking about the same age group, would you like to also comment on any relation, if that is, between deranged thyroid profiles and osteoporosis or bone density?
Yeah, I think that's a great question, and that's one of my areas of work also. But anyway, the major thing with thyroid is that if you are keeping the TSH and T4 in the normal ranges, there is hardly any chance of a significant impact on the bones. So again, the medicine doesn't harm the bones. People come and say, I started having Eltroxin, तो मेरे जोड़ में दर्द होने लग गया, my bones are getting weak, doctor, ऐसे कुछ नहीं होता है. The Eltroxin or thyroxine or Thironam, whatever you use, it will affect the bones only if you're over treating yourself. So if you're not keeping your TSH in the target range, but are pushing the medicine either to lose weight or just feel better, and or your doctor is not cognizant or you're not going to the doctor, if the TSH is low, below normal, and sustained below normal, that will have an adverse impact, and that can lead to osteoporosis. So I think that is important to remember, that osteoporosis can happen in thyroid patients if they continue to have a low TSH for long periods. But if you are maintaining your TSH in the normal zone with appropriate doses of thyroid, then you will not get any trouble.
Sir, also again, since we are in that age where everybody is getting more conscious and we want to move towards a preventive medicine, so what are the precautions or any lifestyle modifications that one can take so as to maybe, I guess again, if you can't completely defy the disease, can you at least delay the process?
So one of the challenges that I face in my daily practice is that people with diabetes who require lifestyle modification don't do it. And people with thyroid where I have nothing to offer go on asking me this, that there must be something in lifestyle. And the person with diabetes, I keep telling them about lifestyle and they don't listen. So the truth is that you cannot prevent or delay thyroid disease. You cannot. Okay, there's no evidence right now that anything that you do, either alternate medicine or special yoga or anything, that can actually prevent progression of thyroid disease or even slow it down. Yes, in the lifestyle zone, there is talk of selenium, so one should not be deficient in selenium. And the other is that when I was a student and when I moved from Lucknow to Delhi in the 80s to do my DM in endocrinology, that time the most common disorder we saw was iodine deficiency disorder with those large goiters. That was all diet related because our diet didn't have enough iodine. Now with the government ideating salt in the mid 90s and making it universal by the year 2000, I think, then that has disappeared. Otherwise, when as a resident, when I used to do my outpatients in All India Institute, there were more people with thyroid than with diabetes. And thyroid meant everyone coming with these big glands, goiters. But wo khatam hai. It's not there. You don't see that anymore. And that's simply because iodine has been added to salt. So that is lifestyle. But since iodine is there in our salt, then the element of lifestyle is taken out.
Sir, again, extending from that, so talking about nutrition, how can nutrition help change the state of a patient? Can it help in relieving symptoms in some way? Can it help in controlling the disease in some way or maintaining it in some way?
So again, if you're looking at altering thyroid hormone levels or thyroid hormone function, then you can't do much with nutrition also. Of course, the only thing you should perhaps take care is you can, talk to the doctor. You have to take enough green vegetables and that kind of stuff. But really, it's not anything that specifically goes to the thyroid. Okay. Uh, the precautions, of course, are that when you use soya products for protein, you got to be sure that you're not taking it close to the thyroid pill, because soya products can interfere with the thyroid medicine. So if you have to take it, you take it towards the evening or something. But as such, if I say, so you will read in the net. Yes, it's a good question. Now I remember what I was wanting to say. If you read it on the net, you will find cabbage se thyroid, ye bhi chhod do, broccoli chhod do, ye chhod do. It's all bunkum. Sorry, that's created by nutritionists to keep people busy. There is no such thing. It's the same. I will give you an equivalent that you will understand very well. You're an ophthalmologist. It's like gajar khaoge to chashma nahi lagega. We were told that in childhood.
Yes.
Everything is vitamin A. So ye kuch connection nahi hai. That is myopia. Na? It doesn't get affected by gajar. Only vitamin A gets affected by gajar. So similarly, that's a different kind of disease they're talking about. Autoimmune thyroid disease, which comprises 90% of our thyroid disease, is not affected by what we eat so much. So another angle to that. So one is this cabbage, broccoli, ye sab chhod diya. I have stopped everything, doctor. Now my thyroid will be okay. It won't. The other is the new fangled, the new fashion. That is thyroid was autoimmune. Autoimmune is the gluten to chhodna hi hai. Gluten is our biggest enemy in autoimmunity. We don't know that at all. If you have a thyroid condition, you may want to get checked for gluten allergy. That's okay. Do a celiac disease test. But if you don't have that test positive and don't have stomach symptoms, there is no correlation. The correlation is only that both are autoimmune conditions. So they are more likely to happen together. But it's not that everybody who has thyroid has to stop gluten because gluten will encourage autoimmunity and encourage more thyroid damage. ऐसे कुछ नहीं है. There's no proof of that. I don't know how it has become so. All patients are asking me that. You stopped gluten. I said, why have you stopped gluten? So because gluten damages and creates autoimmunity. No, only if you have gluten autoimmunity. It doesn't do anything to thyroid autoimmunity. Right? So do a test. If the test is negative, don't worry about gluten. Then also, of course, these days, everyone's giving up milk for everything. So milk bhi chhod dete. So if you don't like milk, you give it up, then don't blame it for any disease. Aise kuch nahi hai. Some people, unless you're lactose intolerant, unless you have a problem, then you don't have it. But otherwise, milk doesn't cause any problem here as far as thyroid is concerned, as far as diabetes is concerned, as far as heart disease is concerned.
Clearly, sir, the traditional Indian household का जो खाना होता था, I think that has always been the best. Sir, again, coming to diabetes now. So again, these are two big major diseases that we are talking about. What is the interrelation between diabetes and thyroid?
So, okay, there are two kinds of interrelation. Number one is the type 1 diabetes I spoke about, the insulin dependent diabetes, which is autoimmune. So you always check children with type 1 diabetes for thyroid. Thyroid is common in that kind of diabetes. But that's a small group. That's about 5% of total diabetics have that kind of diabetes. But their thyroid testing is very, very important, as is testing for gluten sensitivity. Very important, right? Now, the other part is the regular diabetes that we see, which is 95% of our diabetes. So I think someone needs to mute. Hmm. Everyone should probably
Please
mute.
mute yourself.
It shows everyone is mute. I don't know.
Yes, I have muted everyone. I think you're good.
Some background. Anyway, so then we come to diabetes. Now, diabetes and thyroid are such common conditions that they often overlap. Okay, it's not really clear if thyroid can cause diabetes or diabetes is, people with diabetes are more prone to thyroid. But since they are both chronic conditions and both very common, it is very important to check all thyroid patients for diabetes and all diabetes patients for thyroid. So although it's not that they're causing each other, but they commonly occur in the same person.
Sir, again, let's just shift to a little bit more about diabetes now, because I'm sure because everybody must be really satisfied with the kind of knowledge that they have received today about thyroid, because it is definitely unheard of for most of the people, I'm sure. Sir, so again, talking about diabetes. So we started off saying that diabetes is a lifestyle disorder. And again, there is a predisposition of genes that comes into play. So, sir, how do we change our lifestyle to basically maybe increase our longevity before we get a diabetes, or
Absolutely.
yeah, or maybe maintain it properly so that there is less damage to the body?
Absolutely great. I think that's important. I'll just give one example of to you, which will explain what I mean when I say genes and lifestyle both. And I typically say that genes are the seeds that are sown, but it is soil has to be fertile or vice versa. Soil is fertile if you have your genetic predisposition, but if you throw the seeds of bad lifestyle, the plant will sprout. So if you can avoid throwing the seeds, the soil may be very fertile, but it will not still grow. So for example, one example that most people do understand is that look at the people who drive your car. Many of you may be having chauffeurs or drivers, and at least in Delhi, 90% are from smaller towns. And when they migrate to bigger towns in search of a job, within 6 months of their coming here, their tummies come out, because they are driving. And since in general physical activity is considered below our dignity, the more we move up in the ladder we start. Abhi to driver hai, sahab ke saath hai, odd times pe khayenge, odd cheeze khayenge, road side pe khayenge. Obviously, if you were to do a study in drivers or chauffeurs, you would find a very high prevalence of diabetes. And the same guy was in the village, and then his diabetes risk was very low. Genes were the same. Genes have not changed, right? So by doing these things, we are kind of increasing our risk for diabetes. So how do we prevent that? The fundamental thing, of course, is to try and maintain body weight, which is very difficult and a challenge. And I know, especially for women, repeated pregnancies, there's that, but still maintaining body weight to the best we can is the biggest challenge. Number one. Number two, even if we do put on weight, if we exercise enough, we won't get central weight, like around our tummy, which is the bad fat. And and that bad fat actually produces toxic chemicals that are cytokines, which actually cause diabetes and heart disease, right? So if the fat cells, they produce those little things which will keep going into your blood and going to your pancreas, going to your heart and all that. So that is where the genesis is. So to prevent diabetes, when parents come and ask me कि हमको डायबिटीज है, बच्चे को कैसे हम ठीक करें कि उसको नहीं हो डायबिटीज, तो उसका वेट नहीं बढ़ने दीजिए. obesity in children has gone up dramatically. From when we were at school to now, there is a big difference. And therefore, we are finding that type 2 diabetes that we talk about at 30 or 40, even at 20, even at 15 sometimes. And I get these people from semi-rural Haryana, very wealthy, because land prices went up in Haryana some years ago, 2 decades, 3 decades ago, where the grandfather, who's 84 years old, still cycles through his farm, okay, and inspects all the labor. He's ramrod straight, good, strong Haryanvi, okay. And then we have his grandson, who was already in a Audi or Merc or something, and he runs a gym. This is the most fashionable thing here. Open a gym. I don't know what will happen now with COVID, but everyone's opening a gym. And he's all big and healthy, but he's also got a nice big this thing. He's fond of eating, and he is diabetic at 24. And the 84-year-old man has very mild diabetes, maybe requiring one drug or nothing at all, no complications. So this is what happens with lifestyle. So if we maintain physical activity and some degree of physical, like 30 minutes per day, even that is good. And later on, if you can, of course, add yoga, it helps a lot in your flexibility. And maybe 1 or 2 days a week, if you can do resistance training, which I don't do, but I think people should do. It makes a difference, if you can do some weights and all, not too much, but just a little. So some balance of exercise, a healthy diet. And you see, our problem is that we allow our weight to come on, and then want to reduce it. And if you were alert and if you didn't let your weight come on beyond a couple of kilograms or 3 kilograms or 4 kilograms, then you would probably be much better off. But then one is so busy in one's life and children and this and that and profession, that people don't pay attention, and then they start doing something about it. Then it becomes very difficult. So you cannot maintain ideal body weight. So don't worry about that. You may not be able to. Some of you can, but many of you may not. But if say you are 20 kg overweight, let's say, even if you lose 5 kilograms, you've reduced the risk of diabetes hugely. Not just 1/4, they brought it down a lot. So if you're able to lose 10% of your existing body weight, right? So if you're 100 kg, if you lose 10 kilograms, fantastic. 5 to 10% weight loss benefits are underemphasized because we are driven by beauticians and cosmetics and not by health. But the advantage, there's a huge health advantage to losing 5 to 10% of your body weight and not looking at, my God, I should be 55 and I'm 85. So there's no point in trying. But no, I'm 85. If I lose even 5%, if I lose 4 or 5 kilograms, I'm actually much healthier in reducing my risk for diabetes, reducing my risk for hypertension and heart disease. So 10% is perfect, but anything above 5% of body weight loss has significant clinical benefits in your risk for diabetes, in controlling diabetes, in your complications for diabetes. And I think you put it very succinctly when you said that it is both. We always say, A, delay diabetes as much as you can. Sometimes you can even avoid it. Delay diabetes. B, delay complications. If you got diabetes, doesn't matter. It's all right. Don't fight the medicine. Take the medicine, do all the lifestyle things. You can delay complications. So I think that's the way we have to look at this, and it's very much possible with lifestyle.
Sir, again, as you spoke about the complications, so diabetes is basically an umbrella where this one disease process can actually affect a lot of organs. So please, sir, if you could tell the audience more about the other organs in the body that get affected, and what is the rate with which they can get affected.
So, diabetes can affect everything. Diabetes, we say, is something that can impact. We actually say it's probably an index condition that brings you to the doctor, and then the doctors look after everything, not just a blood glucose value, right? So you have to, I mean, I'll have to list it out, and you don't have to feel that everyone's going to get everything. But uncontrolled diabetes, I will always specify, uncontrolled diabetes makes you at greater risk of eye disease, kidney disease, foot problems, and of course, the most important, the heart. Uh, when we did a study when I was in Vedanta, we did this study 4 or 5 years ago, 61% of those who were undergoing coronary artery bypass surgery were diabetic. So it has a big impact on the heart. And then now what we have described is the impact of diabetes on the liver. We've done several, even yesterday a study got published where we are looking at how anti-diabetic drugs impact the liver. And newer anti-diabetic drugs protect the liver from so fatty liver and diabetes is also a very strong link. It's like an intermarriage almost, because they promote each other. So you must have heard fatty liver, ultrasound mein fatty liver aa gaya, usne bola liver. So it may not produce any symptoms, but it's also a marker and a warning for future.
Yes.
Then we also have the impact of diabetes on bones, something we don't. So our new mission now, and we'll have a campaign on that soon, is we know about diabetes and eyes and the kidney and all that, but we're going to talk about diabetes and liver and diabetes and bones. The fracture risk, osteoporosis risk in a person with diabetes is 1.5 to 2 times higher than a non-diabetic. So a 60-year-old woman with diabetes, 60-year-old woman without diabetes. The person with diabetes has almost double chance of getting a fracture. So there is a whole gamut. Having said that, almost all the complications can be prevented by good diabetes control. There is a ABC. There are 3 things in diabetes control. Diabetes is not just blood sugar. If you're just controlling blood sugar or your doctor is just focusing on blood sugar, what we call a glucose-centric approach, that is not good enough. You have to maintain good blood sugar control, good blood pressure control, and ideal cholesterol levels. And all can be done with fairly innocuous medication coupled with lifestyle. So if you do the ABC, we call it A1C. Some of you may know A1C is the test for diabetes, HbA1c, which gives a 3-month average. So A is A1C, B is BP, and C is cholesterol. That is the ABC of diabetes. And if we maintain that, then we will not get into any of these complications.
Sir, also again talking about diabetes further, if you could give us an insight on, again, some early signs that can help a patient go to a clinician on time. And
Sure.
yes, sir. And also how is nutrition helpful in maintaining diabetes?
Yes. Firstly, the early signs, again, like hypothyroidism, diabetes, most people don't have symptoms and they are picked up on health checks. These days, because of COVID, people are getting admitted for COVID and suddenly find they're diabetic. They never checked. So people come to so it's important to do an annual screen above 30 in India, and maybe even earlier if you're fat or if you have a family history. Okay. So annual screening for diabetes is important. Symptoms can be tiredness, fatigue. Those are non-specific. Changes in vision, and definitely unexplained weight loss again. Unexplained weight loss, passing a lot of urine, getting up at night to pass urine in a young person who was otherwise okay. Suddenly that's right. And a lot of thirst, sometimes even increased appetite. These are the classic symptoms of diabetes. But non-specific symptoms can just be a little blurring of vision, calf pain, tiredness. Suddenly you're feeling tired at the end of the working day when you weren't earlier. Those are subtle symptoms, right? And the extreme, of course, is when you reach the hospital with a complication and then find you're diabetic. So that also happens. That is one part, but I do recommend strongly that screening for diabetes is mandatory, more or less, for people over 30 in our country, because we do get it younger. We do get it younger, and we do get it, it's increasing in prevalence. So there is no harm in doing a blood glucose once a year if you're above 30. And if you have a strong family history and if you're overweight, even earlier, maybe in 2025, you can start checking.
Sir, while we are managing diabetes, हमारा goal होता है to bring down the high blood sugar levels. But again, there is also an aspect called low blood sugar levels. How is that difficult to treat, and how is that going to affect the condition of the patient?
So yeah, I'll complete my earlier answer. I just remembered you also asked about nutrition. Nutrition plays a critical role in managing diabetes. Critical role. It's like the foundation on which everything is built. If nutrition is haywire, then whatever fancy drugs you might use are all wasted. Timing, content, you have to go to a proper nutritionist, get a diet plan and follow it. Ask your doctor, they'll guide you who's the correct person. But you cannot treat diabetes without having a nutrition plan. It is ridiculous. So it won't work, right? So nutrition has a critical role to play in long-term diabetes. Yes, and your second question was?
Sir, my question was that to talk about low blood
Yeah,
sugar.
low blood sugar. So low blood sugar is de novo blood sugar is a very rare condition, but in people with diabetes who are on insulin or the older drugs for diabetes, it is common. It can be common. And with the newer oral drugs for diabetes, it's become very less common. However, a low blood sugar reaction can be devastating. By and large, mild low blood sugar reactions are easily manageable and they are not very sick. You get some little bit of trembling, sudden hunger, little wooziness, and you can manage it. But severe low blood sugar reactions, hypoglycemias, can be damaging because they may actually, if they are not detected, they can cause a whole amount of damage, right? And unlike high blood sugar, which causes damage over a period of time, a sudden drop in blood sugar below, if it's serious drop in blood sugar, then can really damage you at that moment. It's an acute damage. So, but most drops in blood sugar are not severe, number one. Number two, most drops in blood sugar are avoidable. Unless you miss a meal, if you're taking a powerful medicine in the morning and lunch nahi khaya, तो low sugar तो हो ही सकती है. So that kind of thing. Or you took the insulin and forgot to eat, got talking to a friend. So those kind of things are a problem. If you follow the timing and the instructions carefully, your risk of low blood sugar is very low. So then you will not be getting serious blood sugar. Having said that, if you do get it, then you need to have that glucose with you. You should carry biscuits in your pocket or carry glucose in your pocket. These days, there are those tablets of glucose which are easy to carry. You can just peel and suck on one of them. So those are good ways, but then you have to check with your doctor. Are you on medication that can cause that low sugar? Or are you not on such medication? If you're not on such medication, don't worry about it.
Sir, again, low sugar or hypoglycemia as we call it. Sir, if there is a person in a situation where they have hypoglycemia and probably in a situation where they cannot be they're unable to test the blood sugar through a portable device, how dangerous is it and how to identify it?
So low blood sugar, ideally, if you are a diabetic, you must have a portable device with you.
Mm-hmm.
And it should be part of your handbag or whatever you're carrying. Okay, so that is number one. Ideally, you should check, but you can recognize it by sudden onset of hunger, sweating, trembling, a hollow feeling in the pit of the stomach, great emptiness, or wooziness, and you can actually even pass out. So you're out shopping and you got late and your lunch got delayed and you took your medicine in the morning and suddenly the symptoms come on. You have to pop glucose or sugar or something like that at that point. So if you're not sure whether it's low sugar or not, but still you're feeling quite unwell, take something sweet. At least you'll get protected. अगर high होगा तो फिर manage कर लेंगे बाद में. लेकिन if it's low, then you can't. You have to manage it there and then.
Sir, there is another question that I would like to put forward. Is there an interrelation between the female hormone profile, estrogen basically, and diabetes or the disease process of diabetes? How does it affect?
Relation between?
Estrogen or other hormones in the female body and diabetes, do they have an interrelation?
Yes, they do, but it's not. I mean, it's not that the prevalence of diabetes is higher in women or anything. But estrogens do have a role to play because typically estrogens protect our heart, and that's why premenopausal women don't get so much heart disease. However, it is true that to some extent diabetes takes away that protection. So if you're a diabetic, then that estrogen protection gets less. So estrogen and some varieties, older varieties, some hormones can also raise your blood glucose. But by and large, it's not that estrogen will directly contribute to diabetes, no, or protect against it.
Thank you so much, sir. Sir, there are a lot of viewers who have posted a few questions. So with your permission, we could go through a couple of them.
I'm fine so long as, I have another
So
commitment at 5 and
we will
it's
not,
4:55.
We'll
we
just
will not.
take up the important.
I'm happy to answer. Only thing is the time.
All right.
Let
Sir,
me just check 1 second. Let me actually check.
okay.
One sec. Let me
Okay.
check. Time is the next commitment. Is it 5 or 5:15?
So there is still 5 more minutes to 5.
It's 5 sharp. No, wait.
So it's 4:56.
We have. I'm here till 5:05. It's okay.
Super. So we'll just quickly, we have a question from our past president, Kiran Gera. If Kiranji, if you're here, if you could just unmute yourself. Just a minute, I'll just also help you do it. Give me a minute. Okay. Amrita just asked sir the question till the time I unmute Kiranji. Just fine.
Yes. Sir, so a lot of people have actually commented asking if thyroid diseases are a reversible process.
It's a good question. So full-blown hypothyroidism is typically not reversible. Fluctuations can happen, and there are patients who become okay. That's just your luck. So you cannot bet on it that I will do this and I'll reverse it. So sometimes it can reverse on its own. Then you got to be very lucky, and that's just a matter of chance. There are some situations where you get transient hypothyroidism. Sometimes in newborns, you get transient hypothyroidism. Sometimes in pregnancy, you get transient hypothyroidism. Sometimes with certain drugs, you get hypothyroidism. With certain radiological procedures, you get transient. So those are specific situations where you get transient hypothyroidism. Having said that, subclinical hypothyroidism, which people often label as hypothyroidism, Frank, is often reversible on its own, as I was telling you. Subclinical means TSH between 5 and 10. Many of them on follow-up will become normal, especially if antibodies are negative. So if you have frank, fully established clinical hypothyroidism, there is a small chance of reversal, and that you cannot do anything about. If you have, on the other hand, what is called mild or subclinical hypothyroidism, sometimes there's reversal is possible, and sometimes they may remain the same, or sometimes they may become frank hypothyroidism. So there is some chance of reversal, but typically autoimmune disorders follow their own path. And what we do doesn't really modify the course too much.
And sir,
one important point here, because people think that they get addicted to the medicine. दवाई नहीं शुरू करेंगे, शुरू कर दी तो जिंदगी भर खानी पड़ेगी. That is a very wrong concept. The medicine is not addictive at all. It's only replacing your thyroid hormone. So it's a condition that is lifelong. So medicine is lifelong. If it's not lifelong, for some reason, medicine won't be lifelong. But by taking the medicine, you don't become addicted to it, then you can't leave it. ऐसे कुछ नहीं है. That's wrong.
So the same thing, because there is a lot of published articles here and there on the internet when we go and access. So diabetes reversal की भी बात हो जाती है कभी-कभी. So people have also asked questions about that.
Yeah. So diabetes reversal is a very hot area, and a lot of work being done. And there are companies that have now specialized in that. There are clinics that specialize in that. Well, what it means is aggressive lifestyle measures. It's like someone holding your hand 3 meals a day, checking what you're doing, checking what you're eating. Every calorie is counted, every step is counted, and a track maintained. If you can do that, especially in the early stages of diabetes, then you could potentially reverse. But the ones who can reverse are typically those who got diabetes because of significant overweight. So if you put on 10 kilograms and you get diabetes, lose those 10 kilograms, diabetes will go away. So weight-driven diabetes is reversible, particularly in the early stages. But sometimes, even in late stages, it happens that, for example, people undergo bariatric surgery when they're severely obese. पूरा ठीक हो जाती है diabetes बहुत बार. So it is linked again to primarily to weight, and weight means lifestyle. Lifestyle means difficulty in following, which means that programs that offer you all these things, the 7-day, 10-day programs are nothing magic. It's the same thing. They just make sure you do it. It's about motivation, surveillance, supervision, rather than anything magic that they're doing. So some diabetes can be reversible in the early stages with aggressive lifestyle measures.
Okay. So we have Kiran Gera ji now.
Yeah.
Kiran ji, please ask your question.
Thank you. Namaskar, Dr. Saab. Wonderful.
Namaskar.
Your session was very, very clear. I'm going to ask you a very stupid question, but forgive me. I hate taking my sugar, that pricking test. I just don't like doing it. Is there an equipment that you can recommend which is easy to use and that I can take my readings regularly? Something in the market.
So I think it's a very relevant question. It's in endocrine meetings, that's one of the most important questions. We are almost there, but not quite there. So there's a huge amount of work on this, and I'm involved in some of that, technology driven, where you will be able to get accurate blood glucose without pricking. At the moment, no. At the moment, the best you can do is use those continuous monitors, which are just taped onto your upper arm, and which will record your sugars, but they are not as good as the pricking machine.
I was told they are not that accurate.
That's what I said myself. They're okay, but they're not as. The important point is that they do help us in seeing the trends and everything. So at the moment, they don't replace pricking. That's what you're asking. But I'm certain that it won't be long before we'll have, like you have your pulse and heart rate on the same device these days, everything, how many steps you've walked, the machine tells you. I'm sure blood glucose will also be measured like that, because I'm quite aware of technologies which are just awaiting approval, from various bodies. So non-invasive monitoring of blood glucose is the holy grail for diabetologists. And I think we are quite close to cracking it, and hopefully there will be some good news in a year or 2 years.
Well, I'll definitely invest in the stock of that company. Doctor, could you recommend that one of the best equipment in the market today, which maybe I'll just go and pick
So
up?
most of these are good. The standard companies, the Accu-Chek, the Johnson Johnson, Bayer, at least these three we use regularly. They're quite reliable.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you.
So, sir, there's one last question that I will put up from our viewers. So, Minika Garg, she has posted that her doctor got an anti-thyroid peroxide SE test, and she had been losing a lot of hair for a very long time. And the test results were 53.72, and which was way beyond the normal range. And what does that indicate?
So if that's a very common question, a very common situation.
So it's also saying that, is it indicative of autoimmune disorder?
Yes. So that's what it is. If you have positive thyroid antibodies, but a normal TSH, don't forget the TSH. If TSH is abnormal, it's a thyroid disease. It has to be treated. If TSH is normal, just antibodies are positive, it's a soft indicator of autoimmune disease. And there may be some autoimmune disease that's causing hair loss. But the thyroid antibody itself doesn't cause hair loss. And also, there is no medicine you can give to treat thyroid. People keep doing their thyroid antibodies again and again. Abhi kam ho gaya, ab thoda badh gaya. This is all not, it makes no sense. They are just a marker to tell you this is autoimmune. And their titer doesn't adjust based on the severity of disease or anything. Right? So if you are losing hair and if you have antibody positive, that directs your dermatologist towards looking for autoimmune causes for hair loss, but doesn't mean that that antibody itself is causing hair loss. And do not try to treat thyroid antibodies. There is no way to treat them.
Thank you so much, sir. I would now request Mrs. Pooja Garg to say a few words. Pooja, you need to unmute.
Sorry. So,
that was regarded as the most used phrase this year. Please unmute yourself. Okay. Or every day I'm doing this because I forget to unmute.
So I just wanted to say that all of us have encountered these diseases one way or the other and have lived through the trauma. So it's been very enlightening, Doctor, to listen to your expert advice. And I hope that the members out here who have been dealing with these diseases, they've got enough tips from you how to manage them correctly. And I'm sure many of them who have not had it yet diagnosed, it could help the signs which you have told us today may help them further to diagnose it. So we hope to bring more of such sessions dealing with certain lifestyle diseases. I know that thyroid isn't one. And thank you so much for all that you have shed light on. Thank you so much.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure and fun. And देखिए अपने शहर में अगर बात करें थोड़ी इज्जत की बात भी होती है. So I hope that I have not disappointed all of you. And thank you very much for inviting me.
Doctor, I want you to know that you know my father as well. He's Dr. S.N. Agarwal from Kanpur.
Of course. Yeah.
So,
Oh, yeah.
yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Sir,
Wonderful.
so I would just like to invite our Senior Vice Chair, Mrs. Arushi Tandon, to say a few words and give the vote of thanks.
Just unmuting. Arushi, please unmute yourself.
Thank you, Amrita. Good evening, everyone. Thyroid diseases and diabetes are the two most common endocrine disorders encountered in clinical practices. Diabetes and thyroid disorders have been shown to mutually influence each other. Thank you, Dr. Amrish Mittal, for demonstrating the importance of identification of this interdependent relationship between thyroid disease and diabetes, which in turn will guide us on the optimal screening and management of these conditions. Thank you, Ms. Pooja Garg, our chapter chairperson, for organizing such an interesting webinar and showing us the varied outlook of these common diseases. Thank you to our MC, Dr. Amrita Khatri. Having a doctor moderate this session was an added bonus as it ensured that this session remained relevant to the members present and all data queries got addressed. Heartfelt gratitude to our sponsors, Liberty Shoes Private Limited, RG Infracity Private Limited, Shalimar Cough, Wild Punch, and now Lucknow. A special thanks to our governing body, flow members from Lucknow and other chapters for being here with us and gracing this event. Thank you. Over to you.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you for being
Okay.
with us.
Bye.
Thank you, Doctor.
Thank you for your time.
You're welcome. I enjoyed it. Thank you.
Thank you.